Hi, everybody. Welcome to Sustainable from the Start, a panel talk on building sustainable practices into the foundation of your startup. So I'm Lottie. I'm from the Dingman Center for Entrepreneurship, where we help students from across campus, from any major, launch their business ideas. My co-host today is Nima Farshi. He's the director for the Center of Social Value Creation. And we're joined by Bethesda Green and Mid-Atlantic B Corps community who helped make this talk possible. Is Adam Roberts, Kim, or Patty from Bethesda Green on the call? And turn your video on and give us a wave.
Yes, this is Patty. I'm here. Oh, sorry. Hi.
Patty.
I've moved around. I'm kind of doing some extra stuff, but I'm happy to be here.
Thanks for joining us.
Of course.
And I got a Kim from Bethesda Green is definitely here too. She just sent me a chat. Awesome. Thanks, Kim, for joining us. I saw Adam on the list as well, so I think he's around here. And then is Caroline here from B Corps? She might be joining in just a minute. Yeah, we've got a lot of Nima Farshis on here. Thanks, Nima, for spreading the word. If you are not a moderator, please turn your video off so we can see them clearly. Thanks so much. And if you're a panelist, you can leave your video on. As a heads up, as you heard earlier, this talk is being recorded. And with that, I'll pass it over to Nima.
Thanks. So Lottie and I felt this would be the perfect intersection of our two centers to have a discussion on how a startup can have a value-driven approach from day one and how sustainability can also be profitable. For the discussion, we're going to have a question and answer opportunity at the end. If you have any questions, please send them through the chat function to Lottie or myself, and we will ask our panelists as many of these questions as time permits. We're excited to have Professor Roxanne Lefkoff moderate our discussion, and Professor Lefkoff, I will let you take it away.
Thank you. I want to welcome everybody. I'm delighted to be here today. Marketing professor, been in Maryland for 30 years and still going strong and trying to accommodate with these changing circumstances. I want to give a shout out to my 350 students. I think some of you are logged on right now. And again, just welcome everybody. So it is my great pleasure to introduce the panelists, and then the panelists can give us a brief overview in terms of the work that you are doing. So it's my pleasure to introduce Drew Bwick. He's the managing director of Treehouse Ventures. And then we have Sofia Maroon, and she's the founder and CEO of Dress It Up Dressing. And then Joe Muhammadi, the co-founder and vice president of Ipsum Solar. So let's go ahead and start out with Drew. Welcome.
Welcome, everybody. Thanks for having me. I'm really happy to be here. I think it's a great idea to have this virtual discussion, and I love the topic. You know, I was thinking recently, if I was asked what I would tell a founder or someone building something great, what to do when conditions change unexpectedly. And so I think this is a great talk because my answer is really the same as it would be for any other time, which is to win first, fight later. And I'm happy to talk about adapting to sustain your core operations and really the value proposition from a business standpoint. I guess I'll let you introduce everybody else and we'll come back, or do I have a time limit, or tell me what you'd like to do.
Just a quick, brief overview of your business, and
Sure,
then we'll
sure.
go on to the next person. Sure.
So thanks. So Treehouse Ventures, our brand is purpose united for startups and investors, and so that really examines how leaders lead and how they develop business plans, how they identify market opportunities, how they measure their performance, but also satisfy customer needs, but at the same time reduce risk. So in Purpose United, we've always had this balance of helping organizations grow or launch new lines, or entrepreneurs start, but at the same time reduce risks. And that's where the sustainability idea has always been at our core. because you never know when conditions are going to change. So if you design and pressure test your startup from the start, you're going to be on a much better footing to sustain through downturns like you're seeing this month and last month, which is just incredible. So, personally, I've probably launched about 200 companies. I've had 40 equity investments in technology companies. Some of those have been acquired, and the capabilities you might have used in Google or Microsoft, they found their way there. And then there's probably another 300 to 500 businesses and organizations that are mid to large size that I've assessed or helped them think about growing, reducing risk, how to integrate with their partners. And I'd say the last thing is I've weathered through about 4 of these kind of downturns. So the dot-com bubble, the 9/11 aftermath, personally Iraq and Afghanistan, and then the Great Recession. So I'm happy to share some lessons learned and best practices about the value of sustainability, but how to sustain your operations in these really uncertain times.
Great, thank you. Next, Sofia Maroon, if you could let us know a brief overview about you and your business.
Sure. So my name is Sofia Maroon, and I'm the founder of Dress It Up Dressing, which is a salad dressing company based in Bethesda, Maryland. And I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all this afternoon because it's a subject that's very dear to my heart. So talking about sustainability, I just say my business and my life were always intertwined. Dress It Up Dressing is the dressing that my mother made us when I was a child. And so obviously it's very, very personal. And when I first conceived of it, I settled on the fact that I wanted the company to look like my life, and I wanted the company's values to replicate my own, because I felt it was important, not just what we do, but also how we do it. And I think there's some industries that are more conducive to that than others, but food is one industry where having your values be represented by your product is fairly straightforward, right? It's edible, it's tangible, and usually the reaction is kind of visceral. And if it's delicious, you're going to want more. And so it has to be sustainable. You're going to need your company to be sustainable. So from the start, sustainability was really important to us, not only because it's something that I feel passionately about, but also because I think it makes makes good sense from a business standpoint, that it goes hand in hand kind of with good financial fiscal stewardship. So, so we've always been looking for ways to kind of fold sustainability into our product and also into our company. And today we're a certified B Corp, which means that we're not just saying that we're green, we've also had it validated. And I think being a B has always sort of added another layer of analysis to everything we do. Like we always look at something from the market opportunity, but also from the business opportunity, the financial opportunity. But then also, is it sustainable? And that's really easy when you're tiny. Like when we first started, we were selling to one Whole Foods, and I could, sometimes I delivered on my bike, sometimes I delivered in my Prius. Like sustainability was pretty easy, but today we sell Dress It Up nationwide, and we also sell through Amazon and through our own website. And it's a lot harder to be sustainable. It can get a lot more challenging. But I feel like if it's part of your foundation from the beginning, it's easier to maintain. It's really part of your mandate. So I'm excited to talk about that today.
Excellent, and we will probe further on this as we go through the discussion. So we look forward to hearing more of the details. Lastly, we'd like to hear from Joe Muhammadi, co-founder and vice president of IP Solar. We appreciate you being here as well.
Sure, thank you for having me. My name is Joe Muhammadi. I'm one of the co-founders of IP Solar. And we've been around for about 4 years installing residential and commercial solar on homes and businesses throughout the DC metro area. Sustainability is obviously part of what we do every day because we're installing solar and battery systems, electric vehicle chargers. So my partner and I spent our whole career at the Department of Energy and in various energy and environmental organizations. So sustainability is part of what we think about every single day and what drives and motivates us. So when we think about sustainability outside of our core function, really being a certified B Corp and moving to an employee ownership model is really what we think about in terms of sustainability of our business model. Because solar is such a challenging industry, you're going up against incumbent fossil fuel industries that have infinite resources and are constantly trying to make life difficult for competitors. You really need good people, and you need people that are bought in, that feel like they have a say in how the company is run. You need a democratic organization, and being a B Corp helps us and gives us a lot of the tools to be able to do that. So that's something that my co-founder and I talked about the very first day that we started the company. And so when we think about sustainability, obviously it's part of our core function, but it's also a part of how we're building our business. So really excited for this conversation and honored to be part of it.
Wonderful. So let me get started with the first question. And the theme of this discussion is, can a company be profitable and good for the environment? And so how do you manage this balance in your particular industry? And to follow up, have you ever had to choose between money and sustainability? So Sophia, maybe you'll field this first for us.
I was worried you were going to call on me first.
Oh.
So I had a couple thoughts about this. Like one, yes, we've absolutely had to make choices between sustainability and price, really. I mean, and so when I started the dressing company, we entered the market with a $10 salad dressing, and it was $10 in a market where the average price was about $3 for salad dressing, and there was a reason behind this, and the reason was ingredients. We were using high quality ingredients, and we weren't taking shortcuts. So we weren't adding water, and we weren't adding xanthan gum to thicken it up, and no sugar. And so as a result, you had a much more flavorful product, and you used less of it. But that's a big education for your customer. And so kind of the way that we've sort of, I mean, I think that at first, we certainly gave people sticker shock. And since then we've been able to come down, but it's a place where we think we've been more sustainable. It's more expensive, but we're not shipping water around the country. We're shipping just real ingredients. And I think that in comparison to the competitors who are basically shipping around sugar water, we're making a choice that says, yes, we're going to be more expensive, but we're also going to be much more responsible about what we're selling. So, the hope is that people are smart and people are practical, and if you can give them a reason for that higher ticket, they're going to understand it. If you can back it up, if you're just jacking up your price, that's a different situation. But I like to think that when we've made those sustainable choices that have raised our price, we've also been able to back it up with the facts that sort of say, all right, this is why, we're not doing this. This is certainly not adding to the price for no good reason.
So when you position your product, is it positioned as environmentally friendlier, or is it positioned on good quality? And by the way, it is also sustainable. Do you make that distinction?
Well, we certainly claim both, because I think both are equally important. And I guess I think that sustainable is, we claim it as part of our B Corp certification, certainly. And I love that people are learning more about what it means to be a B Corp, so that they are they have an answer to that question. But I think we're going to make claims on all of those. Like, we're going to be a better product that's better for the environment and better for your body.
And for our students, could you explain what the B Corporation is? Some may not be familiar with that.
Sure. So it's the idea that it's profits and purpose go hand in hand. It's that you're looking at the triple bottom line. You're not just making, yes, you're doing well. It's doing well by doing good. And so examples of B Corp, Patagonia, Ben & Jerry's, Unilever is another one. It's companies that are taking social responsibility and marrying it to their business practices. And it's sort of like a good housekeeping seal of approval, like a certification that says, yeah, you've met these criteria. And the criteria are really strict. I mean, it's hard to get the certification. It's also hard to maintain it. but it really challenges you constantly to, as I was saying earlier, to look through that lens and make sure that you're ticking more than one box at a time.
Excellent. Let's compare salad dressing now to solar panels. And Joe, how do you go about balancing between profitability and sustainability and the environment in your business?
Yeah, for us, it's sort of like second and third tier emissions. Obviously, the core function that we're doing is we're reducing people's carbon footprint every day for residences and for businesses. So we know that every day when we get out of bed, we are helping the environment by installing solar. But also, there's a lot of waste that goes into construction. So we partner with a solar manufacturer called REC Americas, which has a certain way of packaging solar panels that reduces waste. That's very important to us, so we can reduce our footprint on the waste side. But also, we do little things like having post-tax or pre-tax commuter benefits for all of our employees to get to work. So we think about how they can get to work using public transportation, bike share, and that also reduces our emissions too. So part of the B Corp certification is how are you doing in certain sustainability metrics to make sure your overall company footprint is as low as possible, which gets back to that triple bottom line. So you're treating your employees with respect, your customers with respect, providing a living wage, but also you're thinking about how what you do affects the environment every single day.
And when it comes to tough choices, have you had to, how do you do this? Have you ever had to trade off something for something else?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, I mean, we've certainly had to pay more to have less waste. Similar to what Sofia is talking about, is sometimes if you want a premium product and premium service and the highest level of quality and something that's going to be a long-term gain for somebody, it's not going to be the cheapest. So a lot of times what you'll see with B Corps is they're not the cheapest. They're not selling the cheapest thing out there because they're trying to provide a long-term gain. They're trying to provide something that's more helpful for the customer and for the environment and for society. And it's extremely challenging to do that at the lowest price. But what we find, and I think what a lot of B Corps find, is that that's a trade-off a lot of consumers are looking for. They're not always looking for the lowest price, and that you can sell on the value proposition of having a product and a service and an ethos that is above the competition, that's above the par, so to speak. So that I think we sell a lot of our product and our values more so than we would if we were just a single bottom line company.
Excellent. And Drew, you have a broader perspective on this whole issue in terms of starting up companies, advising entrepreneurs, and how do you counsel them in terms of this trade-off between profitability and the environment, or are they compatible? What is your take on some of these complicated issues?
Well, great question. I mentioned how Purpose United, really, I guess we have a philosophy of win first, fight later, and that win beforehand mentality. How do you design resource efficiency into your plans? How do you become resourceful and resilient? To me, that's what that's creating value for both the entrepreneur, but also for investors. Again, resources or sometimes supplier demand, they can become scarce with little warning. So as you're planning on how to achieve positive impact for whatever community you care about, Purpose United has always given some sort of emphasis to look for companies that are creating that value for customers on the one hand. I'd say the other for investors, besides recognizing great value creation, it's the market risk idea. Market risk it's so important because it's beyond the entrepreneur's control. So things like fluctuations in market prices or the competitive landscape. Great business plans are going to include a defensible market position for 10 to 20 years. And so every time I evaluate market risk for a business pitch, I'm listening for, well, how are you going to have sustainable operations that are able to maintain at some level, even when conditions change, or when you implement them in critical business areas, this idea of sustainable operations. If that helps you improve your defensibility of a market position, I think that's a good thing. So that could be again, on the upside, like we just heard Sofia and Joe mention, if it's creating value for your customers, I think that's great. But I think it's also, and certainly look for that, but I also think it can mitigate risk. And it's that risk strategy to mitigate the consequence of market risk that I think is what really brings the sustainable operations and dimensions into the business realm for making it a great business decision.
Excellent. So obviously we have the coronavirus situation going on right now. And so I think it would be helpful just to understand how your businesses, how you're responding if you are trying to maintain, profits and sustainability. And now we have this tremendous challenge. We can mix up the order a little bit. Drew, why don't we start with you now? And
Sure.
so what is your counsel on this?
So great, yeah. So I've been very busy over the last couple of months talking about this, and it's I'll just say I think there's a time phase to it. If we go back in time in February, nobody I knew in America thought that the COVID-19 outbreak was going to affect their business or daily lives. So just look what happened, right? I've been through so many extreme situations and have led big groups and small groups through uncertain times that I kind of recommend the leadership attributes that you need to demonstrate. I usually bin them in terms of what a leader can do and strategies. I should say the attributes. So I'm talking about things like being able to make adjustments quickly, so important. Being able to create an environment for improvement, but have this organizational agility. It's usually that performance measurement agility. You suddenly have to start measuring different things because your environment has changed so much. So, but on strategies really is what I'm talking about. I usually recommend they think about risk reduction strategies. You saw in February and March this reducing the likelihood of failure, and that's a set of actions you can take just to make sure that nobody gets hurt, safety of employees. But now you're seeing another risk strategy of making the system more efficient, and like learning how to use remote capabilities more is a great example. And I think what you're going to see us migrate into in recovery and resumption back to business is the consequence mitigation strategies. So how do you become more redundant and adaptive? How do you change people's mindsets a little bit more and have this idea of resilience, in case this ever comes back again, what are you going to do? So, my counsel has been, it's a little bit different. It depends on what part of the movie we've been in and how you have to tee up a few different objectives for your organization. And then the next bin is really on the people. I spend a lot of time talking to leaders about taking care of themselves, their personal well-being, but that of their workforce, because in these kind of stressful times, everybody is stressed out. And so, getting back to routines, carving out time to stay in the moment and get exercise and reduce anxiety for everybody. How do you communicate where we're headed? Little things like that, and sharing smart practices of what you can do on a weekly basis is really what I've been my guidance to leaders, and what kind of attributes they need to emulate, because people are looking at them, and then what do they say to their workforce to just make it easier and help them adapt to this kind of change.
Excellent, thank you. Joe, how are you managing with your business?
Well, we have a moniker, a motto in our company that every challenge is an opportunity. And so for us, once in a century pandemic is also a once in a lifetime opportunity. We unfortunately had a 30-day furlough that we're just coming out of, and we're going to go back online Monday. So we took those 30 days to go to everyone in the company and ask, what would you do different? What would you like to see changed? And we did a restructuring. So we had grown so fast over the past year that we didn't really have much time to stop and self-reflect. And this was an opportunity for us to have sort of a ground up, very democratic opportunity to restructure the company, make some pretty big changes, and really listen to people at a time when they had time for self-reflection themselves. And so we are coming out of this 30-day furlough, which we thought would be a very difficult time, and in many ways has been, feeling more optimistic about our business and our future than we have in years. So that's how we look at every challenge, because every business has challenges, even outside of a pandemic. When you have a challenge, it's usually an opportunity to do something different and better. And we've always taken that tact. And so this is a once in a lifetime opportunity for us to come out stronger.
So in terms of, because I do teach marketing, and understanding the consumer, they're home a lot more, but they're afraid. But, you know, solar panels would be on their roof and not necessarily in their house, but then many may want it and can't afford it. So there are a lot of issues going on. So how do you manage this business when you might have demand, but maybe people can't afford it?
Well, we're very fortunate that in the solar industry now, you can get financing up to 20 years for solar. So in a lot of cases, you can pay less for solar than you're already paying to the utility for the same amount of power. And because the stock market is so volatile right now, we really talk about solar as an untaxed stock market return with no volatility. It's untaxed because it's savings on your utility bill. IRS can't go after that. It's a stock market return when you look at the payback time and the actual ROI. And there's no volatility because as long as the sun rises in the morning, you're getting the same return every single day. So usually when we talk about it like that and people see their portfolio going wildly up and wildly down day to day, knowing that it's not clear what's going to happen tomorrow or next week, that's a really compelling value proposition. And people can make the connection between sustainability and actual financial viability at the same time.
Mm-hmm. So in this case, this business proposition can definitely go to your advantage. So it's a matter of positioning it and making sure customers are understanding of these issues.
Yep, and not just in terms of the economics, but also in terms of battery backup. So we sell battery backup along with solar, and not a lot of people realize the United States has one of the highest blackout rates of the developed world. So people are thinking about that type of uncertainty now, given the situation, but it's also something that people are looking at more and more as a standard appliance in the home, having some sort of battery backup. And the savings you get from solar paired with the resiliency you have from having backup power, knowing you're never going to be offline from the grid from electricity, is something people are definitely thinking about.
Excellent. And Sofia, more people are home now. Maybe cooking, but they're afraid to go out. So I'm very curious how you're managing your business.
This has certainly been I think at first you might call it a pivot, and now I think it's just twirling. Like we are constantly trying to figure out how to adjust. And so I'll give you some examples of that. Like with absolutely uncannily bad timing. On the 1st of February, we launched a new single serving packet, perfect for the active grab and go lifestyle, which no longer exists. So we had just launched these in Whole Foods Mid-Atlantic, and they were selling at the most beautiful rate of increase week after week after week. And I would say that in the last 6 weeks, sales have dropped 95%. So we were selling, I think the week before the pandemic started, if we sold 200 of the cartons, we sold 5 the following week. So we have seen that market disappear. Those packets were also targeted for universities and corporate campuses. Again, that market shut down 100%. However, at the same time, this is where I sort of feel like our life as a B Corp has paved the way for what we do next. These single serving packets, which nobody wants at a retail basis, everybody wants right now, in order to feed the nonprofits for the nonprofits that are working to feed school kids who are out of schools, healthcare workers. We've seen an enormous amount of interest from those nonprofits like DC Central Kitchen, and we started by donating dressing to them. because we've been supplying dressing for DC public schools for about 3 years. And when they shut down the schools, I called up DC Central. I know you're going to have demand. What can we do to help? And they said, we need dressing. So we donated a couple weeks worth of dressing. And now we're hoping to figure out a way that we can continue to do that. I'm actually spent this morning setting up a GoFundMe because we're hoping that we can get support to help us continue to feed them without losing money. I mean, I do want to stay in business. But I think what we've seen with the pandemic is that the first responders have often been corporations or businesses, companies, especially companies in your community. And I'm based in DC, well, Bethesda specifically, but we've got, my personal hero, Jose Andreas, who's feeding 5,000 people every single day. But he was the first one to step up and say, there's an emergency, people need to be fed here. And so I think that when you talk about sustainability, it's like looking at these companies as members of your community too, and who are gonna participate and help in your community the same way that individuals do. It's certainly something that we see as being our role too. It's like if we're successful as a company, that enables us to do things like work with DC Central Kitchen and help feed the people who are in need or the people who are on the front lines. And so it's certainly stretched us. Like we've had to figure out how we're gonna sort of survive this with something like a 95% decrease in sales. However, if the inventory is there and the demand.
I think we've lost connection with Sofia. Give her a second, see if we can get you back in, because I'm very suspenseful about what you're going to say next. We'll give Sofia a chance to see if she can reconnect with us, and we'll come back. But let's move on to a very broader question, because in order to initiate strategic moves that involve sustainability, it takes a certain type of leader. And so, Drew, if you could share with us what you think some attributes of effective leadership are needed to build a sustainable organization.
A great question. Sure. Roxanne, I think my experience is, I do start with that idea of the attributes, so the sort of behaviors and thinking and ways that the leadership teams or an entrepreneur needs to think when they're pressure testing their business or as they're growing their business. So things like what I've noticed, the effective ones, they work together with the key customers and suppliers, right? They're able to do that. They're still good at sharing information among their internal individuals, but external partners is important. I mentioned this idea to make adjustments and to manage risk. They seem to understand global operating environments. They're really good at questioning assumptions and collaborating in real time. I've noticed the best, they tell such good stories, not just to their workforce, but to partners, so they understand, complexity and why the sustainability is important. And I'd say, when you put that all together, that to me, they're just better able to quickly decide on, different types of strategies and objectives for their business. And to me, they've just had a better ability to implement them, not only choose which ones, I think there's trade-offs with every choice, but to implement them, the strategies, and again, at the same time, manage the risks, whatever the times come up. Like I said, in changing times, I think they have the ability to reduce the likelihood of failure when they need to. They can make adjustments, and we heard Joe say it, sort of improve system effectiveness. You turn lemons into lemonade, but they also are able to think about mitigating consequences right now and into the future. And they do that by strengthening partnerships, creating these sort of redundancies in their system, and really adapting inclusive business strategies is a great one that I've seen with socially conscious organizations. They tap the wisdom of the crowd and the talent pool that's out there, for example, which increases trust amongst just the whole network. So those are the sort of things that I've noticed the most effective ones do when they build sustainability from the start.
Excellent. And Sophia, welcome back. You hear us fine now?
I do. Sorry about that.
We're so glad to have you back.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Yes, yes. So we're talking about some big picture, what are effective attributes of effective leadership to build sustainability into organizations. And I'll give you a minute to think about that, and I'll throw it over to Joe in terms of your business. How do you handle this?
Well, I think the one word that I think is the most important Drew just mentioned is stories. An effective leader is somebody who's able to motivate people based on the mission and the values of the organization, and also recruit people. Funny story, we actually started delegating some of our recruiting to our middle level management, and we found that it wasn't as effective. And the reason was our CEO, my business partner, was so good at bringing people in because the story he would tell around the company and around the business and how we started it and what we stood for and what we were trying to accomplish was so compelling that he could pull in people from our competitors, from the talent pool all over the country, literally. And that was one of our strongest assets. And that's been a real asset today, because when you furlough your entire company, you better have a really good story about why you're doing that. And we did. People understood that we were doing it for the long-term viability of the company. They accepted it wholeheartedly in most cases. They understood that we had a plan to come back, that we were applying for federal financing, federal funding, which we were lucky to get. So I think that is one of the most key parts of a good leader, is somebody who knows how to tell the right story that matches with the values of the organization. Now, that said, you also have to be able to manage risk, have good partnerships, be able to talk to your distributors and restructure your finance terms with folks in a situation like this, and your landlord. So it's sort of a right brain, left brain thing. And we're fortunate to have a partnership where one of us is the right brain, one of us is the left brain, which helps. But got to be able to do both. But I think if you can't tell a good story, you're not going to get very far. So that to me is the most important thing.
Thank you. And Sophia, I read in some information about the Purple Crayon book was one of the stories that inspired you. If you wanted to maybe give us a story as well.
Yeah, well, I love Joe's answer. And the story of Harold and the Purple Crayon was actually, it was one that I just had read one too many times, maybe 500 too many times. And so my mind wandered while I was reading it. But really the foundation of our sort of the idea behind the brand was this, something pulled directly from my own life, which was that sitting in the kitchen while feeding 3 children who were squabbling wasn't really my most glamorous moment. And that there are these days where it's not, your life isn't so glamorous, and you try and grab that little bit, that little nugget of relief wherever you can, your kind of Calgon take me away moment. And for me, it was if I used my mother's salad dressing while serving my children, chicken nuggets and tater tots, I felt like a good mother, because there was something green on their plate. But I think that really it kind of, for me, leadership also comes down to, believing everything. Like I constantly am making sure that I'm not spinning myself, that I'm not, like, I do have to make some sales in my day-to-day life for the business, but I don't want to be kidding myself with what I'm doing. And so that kind of authenticity of our purpose and living and breathing it every day, I hope that that's a leadership skill that I possess. I don't feel like a natural leader. I feel like a natural collaborator. I love collaborating with people. And so there are moments where I really bristle against being a leader, but part of my leadership style is that I like to work as a team.
Very good. So I think we've seen a nice variety of outlooks across different businesses, across different situations. And this week, looking at Earth Day and just throughout the week, different things. One of my dear friends who is very involved with the environment, at the bottom of every email, she sends out this Native American proverb, and it goes like this: "We do not inherit the earth from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children." And I think this is something people who logged in today to look at the issues of sustainability, I just think this is something we can all keep with us and think about this as we go on, understanding how we want to start up new businesses, operate them, etc. So I think now's a good time. Nima, I don't know if you've had any questions and answers from the audience yet, that we could open it up.
Definitely. I've had 2 so far that I'll start unmuting so they can ask their questions. And if anyone else has any, feel free to chat me or Lottie directly. So our first question is from Vicky Shi. Vicky, I just unmuted you.
Great. Thank you, Nima. So this panel is amazing to listen to. I was a UMD grad of 2015, and I actually was in Professor Leskoff's class in marketing, and I was in the social innovation program with the Center for Social Value Creation. So I'm loving listening to all this and all these insights. I would love to know, what is the first piece of advice you would give to someone looking to start their own social impact startup? And just to give you a little more context, I'm really passionate about sustainable and ethical travel. I don't know if that means that I should go off and do my own thing or get involved with another startup. Similar to you, Sophia, I feel like I'm more of a collaborator or a leader. So I'd love to hear any first pieces of advice you have for someone like me.
Great. So I think we can give each of our panelists an opportunity. Drew, you want to start?
Sure. Wow, Vicky, great question. So, we have the Social Entrepreneurship Lab at the Smith School, which I manage, and it's, we take students who want to change the world, but also launch a venture. And, we start, with the question just like you asked, and generally, a good starting point is, what do you care about? What kind of special know-how do you have, I think goes into that equation. But I think, when you're if you're interested in addressing a big problem, they're usually all around us. And so I guess it's sort of, to me, a good starting point is just that first, take a step back, and I'm a big fan of the self-awareness, and maybe a one-pager with not only your SWOT analysis, but what's your personal vision, if you could capture that on a page, but maybe your special know-how, and an inventory of sort of your, I think it's important to capture your financial literacy and maybe some of the resources you have available. If you did a 30-minute exercise, very often what I think happens is you can put things in perspective to help you maybe evaluate some opportunities that come your way as you think about what is the best opportunity for you to pursue.
Thanks. Joe, any thoughts here?
Yeah, well, I can speak from my experience, which is to say, for me, finding a partner that complemented my strengths and weaknesses, that was a sounding board that I knew I could be completely honest with at all times, that really has helped a lot. We have a process of sort of creative destruction where we can throw good ideas and bad ideas at each other and come up with the best one without getting our egos too involved. And so that's helped a lot. But I also think just bootstrapping. I mean, that's what we did for the first few years. We had a cash in, cash out mentality. So, we would only really spend money if we had someone paying us for our service. Now, it's easier to do that in some industries than others. But I think for me, that's been the most satisfying part of growing this business, is knowing that we were going to grow slowly. We were going to grow based on the sales that were coming in. And then we were going to grow conservatively from there. That's been immensely satisfying for me. So if you can spend the first year or two really growing slowly, learning from your mistakes, and being happy to be humbled every single day, which you will be, then I think you'll come out of that really strong and in a better position to give a great elevator pitch when you want to find investors and grow.
Thank you. And Sophia, what advice can you share with Vicky?
Well, so I think I talked about this a little bit at the beginning, but I think we gave as much thought to what we wanted to do as to how we wanted to do it and what we wanted the company to look like. And then following that, so that our sort of, our product was detailed, but so was our company and what it was going to look like. But then following that, it was kind of a question of, when I started it, I wore all the hats, and I thought it was really beneficial. It has been really beneficial to be at every stage of the process, from operations through to fulfillment and sales, and to familiarize myself with every aspect of the business before taking off that hat and handing it to someone else. And when you do hand it off, I think it's really important to hand it off to somebody who has skills that are better than yours, and different from yours. And somebody said this great line, which is that, like, if I know more about IT than my IT guy, I've hired the wrong IT guy. So I think that mindset that, don't hire people that are, they have to share your passion and they have to share your vision, but they do not have to share your skill set. And that can take a little while. Like the bootstrapping idea is a great one too. This should all happen gradually. I was a filmmaker before I was a salad dressing maker, and there was a line which was cheap, fast, or good. Something could be cheap, it could be fast, or you could have 2 out of the 3. You could never have all 3. And so our approach has been to grow slowly, but to really have security as we grew. And that's paid off, because I do feel familiar with every part of the business. And other people have different, they got different tolerance for risk, different tolerance for other things, but that's just the way that's what I have tolerance for.
Excellent. So Vicki, I'm glad you're participating as an alum, and Smith School has a lot of resources, so please continue to reach out and stay in touch, and hopefully this has been helpful for you today.
Yeah, this has all been really helpful and inspiring. Thank you so much for all the insightful advice.
Well, thank you. It's always good to hear from a former student. Okay, Nima, next question.
Next question is from Shirley Hahn. I'm unmuting you now, Shirley.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for participating today and providing such great advice. My question revolves kind of around my background, I guess. So I also was a Smith alumni. I graduated 2014, but I didn't really discover much about social impact until later on, actually. And so I guess the question I have for the panelists are that how or when did you know that you wanted to get involved or start a company that revolved around social impact? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Shirley. Joe, why don't you go first this time?
Sure. Well, my story is kind of interesting. I was at the Department of Energy for 10 years, and it was a really exciting time because I came in right at the start of the last financial crisis, and they started up a program for financing new energy technologies. We funded Tesla and a lot of the first large-scale solar power plants around the country, and it was just an incredible time to start my career. That lasted for a few years, and the new administration came in 2016, and that's really when it clicked for me that government is really, really powerful for short periods of time and can do amazing things, but really it's the private industry that can drive things exponentially. And it's very difficult to see the level of innovation in the private industry in the government. So when that clicked for me, that was the time where we started this business. It was right around that time, and I saw a lot of amazing innovations coming out of the clean tech industry, and I wanted to be a part of that. And I was fortunate to have a lot of resources, the Department of Energy, to learn from. So it was kind of a unique experience to realize that after a better part of a decade in government. But I have no regrets and never looked back. And at least for me personally, the experience being in private industry has been so immensely satisfying that I don't know if I ever could go back.
Thanks, Joe. Sophia, your thoughts?
Well, so I think that the reason that I started the company in part was personal, and that was that I needed having been a filmmaker, I had 3 children under the age of 10. And I was struggling. I wanted to go back to work, but I was struggling to figure out how to make my life compatible with my own objectives for parenthood, which is that I wanted to be there and I wanted to have flexibility in order to be present in my children's life. And so I was looking for a job that would fit that, and really struggled to find one. And so when I decided to pursue the salad dressing, one of my friends asked me on like day 2, she's like, all right, it's great that you're going to start this company, but what are you going to do for other people? And it was like, well, that's really obvious. I couldn't find a job as a educated mother of 3 that fit my schedule. And so I'm going to offer jobs to other educated women who are looking for work and are trying to marry parenthood with whatever their career objectives would be. And so that was day 2. And we, from that moment forward, thought, all right, you can always fold in helping people. And so our team, we joke, we're now a team of 3, but for a while we were 4 moms and a millennial. But the women that are on my team, everybody's got a schedule that suits their needs. So one woman comes in every day while our kids are in school, and another woman comes in 3 days a week for full days. It's like all these things are flexible. You're the boss. You get to make these decisions. And so I think that you can fit sustainability, you can fit social enterprise into your company any way you want. Like, be creative, figure out what your priorities are, and then put those in place. And for me, it was job opportunities for people who had more than one priority on their plate.
Thank you. And Drew, your insights here.
My experience, yeah, I think mine was very personal. I think, getting back, I think I always dug making an impact. So I always thought it was cool if you helped communities. It wasn't called social entrepreneurship or social value creation. I just thought it was really neat. But it was definitely where I thought there was more of a need from a business standpoint was after the Great Recession, or really during it. I was in venture capital. And I was amazed at how, it was so hard to see such great, on the one hand, great innovations. Of course, you had to, you couldn't action everything and invest in everything, because it doesn't work that way to make a portfolio work. So I was sort of in the middle saying, wow, it would be great to help these communities that really need help, but you pass up on so many great options. So I wanted to do something different. And about that time, I bumped into somebody and they said, hey, I need your help. I need you to come down to see something on Capitol Hill. So I didn't know any better. I said, okay. And it turned out to be the CCNV, which is the largest homeless shelter in the country. It was literally across the street from the US Capitol. I had no idea. And they said, look how crowded this place is. I think there were 3,000 people in a place that housed supposedly 1,000 people. And I was challenged. Hey, you got to do something about this. We need your help to create jobs for people and get them out of this homeless shelter. So where it really sort of clicked for me was I realized I could bring some of that organization and leadership to bring groups together. And we launched something called the DC Project, which brought together nonprofits across DC to try anyway a green training program for homeless people to get them out of the shelter. And we had a little bit of mixed success, but the point was we did something. We got some grants. We got, at the time, there was a presidential election, and the new guy really liked it and got some shined a spotlight on it. And that, what happened was I noticed that the business models changed, and I had other people ask me, hey, how'd you do that? That's pretty cool. And so again, sort of, I had seen this idea of collaborative technologies. Gosh, I made enough investments in that when you applied it to solve solutions, let's say for city governments, to link to help with fundraising, it made such a huge impact for groups that needed new ways to solve problems. I think for me that really helped me understand how to make an impact, and of course started measuring it. And I just thought it was great, but I was on the board of a company or a nonprofit called Empowered Women International. And again, I was just there to kind of help them with developing a training program for disadvantaged women. But I got to tell you, whenever the women graduated the program and told their personal stories, we usually didn't have a problem raising donations and getting groups to want to participate in it, because it just changed lives. And I really haven't met anybody who didn't tell me they weren't interested in, and if you ask them anyway, how could you help people, right? And even if it meant giving up a little bit of return, most people I know just wanted to know how would you do that? And that's kind of what led me on my journey with Treehouse Ventures and investing in groups to make an impact.
Thank you very much. Nima, are there other questions in the queue?
So I've got one that I'm going to ask.
Great.
It's actually a combination question from Loretta and Crystal. So when your company is small, being sustainable can be expensive. So how do you track this in a way that makes sense for your small business? And how do you include this in the budget in a way that you can actually afford when you're really small and you're not even paying yourself?
Who wants to go first here? Sophia, you started out small.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, like, you've got to make choices that you can fit. There's sort of a adage that says no margin, no mission, and so you can't pursue your goals if you're not actually a viable company. And so that's where I guess it's a question of not being overly ambitious in what you're trying to do. It does still have to make business sense, and so I would say a measured approach, but I also think it pays off. I think that there are people who shop for that kind of value, and so there are people looking for businesses that have that as a priority, and there's nothing. So don't get rid of the priority altogether. Just make sure that it fits what you are capable of doing.
And Drew, thoughts?
Yeah, sure. I guess I don't buy into the idea necessarily that you have to, implement some great sustainable, you don't have to feel like you suddenly converted your house to solar just to say that you're doing something. Getting back to the leadership actions you can take, I advise entrepreneurs, as you're pressure testing your idea, if you were to think about redundancies and alternatives, if you define a goal that you are looking for sustainable options, those are still good actions you can take. I think almost anytime you develop a collaborative strategy, to plan things with people, you're going to come across great ideas that are going to give you options to implement those things. And getting back to that mindset, orienting people to the future to say, well, how could we get our market position to be more defensible? And what resources do we have available? I just think that if you keep those sort of early on, those sort of actions, that you may be lucky enough that those opportunities emerge and you'll recognize them. And I think those are very good leadership actions you can take to put your organization on the footing to recognize those opportunities for sustainability and really a culture of agility. That's my answer.
Thank you. And Joe, your thoughts?
I really would encourage anyone looking at starting a business who knows that they want sustainability to be one of their values to look at the B Corp certification as they're building their business plan, as they're putting their business together, because B Corp has thought about a lot of the metrics around sustainability that you may or may not have thought of yourself. So if you know you want to be a B Corp from the start, you can go through their whole checklist and you can start to think about what elements of sustainability you want to be part of your business. And I think what most companies will find, if they're able to get the B Corp certification, is that once they have that big B on their website and next to their logo and on their jackets and all their merchandise, is that they're going to get the types of customers that they're looking for anyway. And they're actually going to have a branding opportunity and a marketing opportunity to say, these are our values, this is part of our story. Because a lot of companies that have those values aren't always good at telling the story. But when people see that B Corp sticker on the window or on your website, they're going to ask you about it. And then you're going to have a whole new thread to weave through the story of your company. So in short, you can sort of outsource it. B Corp has thought through a lot of the metrics around sustainability that you may or may not even be aware of. And you can look at that certification as you start your business.
Excellent advice. Very good. Other questions? I want to be mindful of our time. I think it's almost up, but are there any final questions from our viewers?
No more final questions that I'm seeing, but I was just hoping if you could leave us with a final word from everyone and final thoughts and advice before we conclude this panel.
Absolutely. Let's start with Drew. Final thoughts.
Final thoughts. Well, again, I'm just going to go back to my big idea here for me is, win first, fight later. You win beforehand when you're trying to, sustainability from the start. If you're thinking, I think, with that open mind, like I just mentioned, about resource efficiency, if you leave yourself open to that and not just, it's just so easy, remember, as you're building the business, it's so easy to focus on the product or service. But when you win first, fight later, you're leaving yourself open to building the business as you're going along. You're pressure testing it. You're leaving yourself open for those resource efficient ideas that sustainability just brings with it, the resourcefulness, the resilience. And again, that's gonna, I think, make your organization even more adaptable when the scarcity of resources comes out of nowhere, right? Like it just did, or in the Great Recession or after 9/11. It happens, guys. So, build your company, not just your product, but your company with that thinking in mind. And I think what you'll also be doing is giving yourself a better chance to make a positive impact for the communities that you care about.
Very good. Thank you. Sofia, final words.
So I would say that I think that pursuing profit alone is boring. There's nothing there. It's like eating a marshmallow. But when you have the other layers to your company that are the social side, it makes it so much more interesting. Like I feel like we have more options. Like when COVID happened, we had a lot of options because we had a lot of purposes beyond just let's sell salad dressing to as many people as possible. So I hope that, my final thought would be that because it's so boring to just pursue profit, I'm hoping that the trend that we'll see is that having a company that's a B Corp or that has this other purpose will actually not just be a trend, but will be a way of doing business, because I think that we'll find that it's better all around for the community, for the business owner themselves. Really, it's win-win.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And Joe, your thoughts?
I love that answer, Sophia. That was kind of part of what I was going to say, that when you start a business, sometimes you can think, I have to make this thing cheaper than everybody else or I'm going to fail. And I think what I've learned is that if you have values, if you have something more in mind than just a single bottom line, you're actually going to find a whole group of consumers that you didn't know were out there, and you're going to be more successful by having a triple bottom line. So capitalism on its own is pretty boring, but capitalism with values is infinitely powerful. And the final thing is find a community. So we are part of a cooperative of 56 other solar companies all around the country. And rather than having to reinvent the wheel every time, we can go to a group of other companies that have been through what we're going through and find answers. So if you have a trade group or maybe the B Corp community, any community that's doing what you're trying to do in some respect, you will gain enormously from that. We've grown a lot faster because of that, having like-minded people in our circle. And I would encourage people to find that community.
Well, thank you. Well, several months ago when Nima and Lottie asked me to participate in this, of course, the world has changed so much since then, but I just really appreciate all the efforts everybody has gone through. At Smith, we're continuing, and it's challenging, but we really appreciate everybody, the faculty, the students, the staff, the alum, our guests that additionally came today. So it warms my heart to know that things have changed, but we're going to continue with this. And we have had a lot of time for reflection lately. So I think the topics that we looked at for this past hour, I think have been very meaningful, and I hope they've provided good insights for people. And this is not the end, it's just maybe the beginning for some of you young entrepreneurs out there. So we encourage you, there'll be other opportunities, and we appreciate you participating today. And I want to thank again Nima and Lottie for all your work organizing this today.
Thank you so much for being here and joining us, Roxanne.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, and this is recorded, right? So will there be an announcement so people who couldn't attend could get the recording?
Sure thing.
Great, very good. Well, I'm going to sign off, and I wish everybody well, and thanks everybody for participating today.
Happy Friday, y'all.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great job.